um, things are always interesting. There's always something new coming along that you have to take into account. So
deal with
yeah, you have to deal with. That's right.
and deal
Um,
with life risks, right?
well, it and that's that's part of the equation. Is I think I don't remember clearly, but there were in the in the distant past periods of of absolute stability. Things didn't change for weeks, months, or years. It was always the same. But today, things change every hour.
Now it's all over the place. The world is becoming more risky. And this is a
Yeah.
topic that we are going to introduce today. By the way, welcome everyone, to our listeners, to people that is watching to us through LinkedIn, through social networks, through YouTube. This is the Unstoppable Product Show, Chapter 3. And in this show, we help CEOs and executives in high tech to gain a go-to solution status by leveraging the behavioral science of the diffusion of innovations, which is what we know about, right, Warren?
Yep.
Today, we're going to start with a series of 3 chapters or 3 episodes in our show. And we're going to talk in the next 3 chapters. We're going to introduce what we call the Lotus Reinvention, to teach you all how innovations and high tech products and software products are adopted by following uh, what we call a risk profile, which means people buys, or most people, mainstream buyers, 84% of any given market, thinks about the risks of buying your technology and product. And this is understanding this is the absolute cornerstone in order to become a go-to solution in your marketplace or a market leader, which is what you may want to achieve.
Yep.
Now, we have a very, very timely, I would say, news, which is the recent cyber attack to the healthcare system, not to the healthcare system, but to United Healthcare, right?
Yep.
On February 21st, I've been reading in the Washington Post and in the New York Times about this cyber attack that has paralyzed the largest US healthcare payment system. This hacking shut down the nation's biggest healthcare payment system in the United States, causing financial chaos that affected a broad spectrum of ranging from large hospitals to single doctor practices. I'm reading the New York Times right now. And for example, here is an urgent care chain in Ohio may be forced to stop paying rent and other bills to cover salaries. That's huge. In Florida, a cancer center is racing to find money for chemotherapy drugs to avoid delaying critical treatments for its patients. So, so right now, almost the entire States healthcare system is on hold. And
Mhm.
what that means for the risk perception and for technology buyers, Warren.
Yeah. W- Well, if I could, mention something that you had touched on earlier, was if you think about diffusion of innovations, where um, somebody introduces a technology or an innovation and it's accepted by different types of people over time,
Mhm,
innovators, early adopters, early and late majority. Well, that model is based on the acceptance of risk. That's what that is. Because the people on the left side of the curve, the innovators and early adopters, they accept high amounts of risk. But, you know, it's like you were saying, the mainstream is really, really in the mindset of how do we avoid risk. So
mhm,
you can actually make your product much more successful just by continuing to lower the perception of risk that will move you across the curve. So
mhm,
it's a very, very powerful concept that that innovation adoption curve has been around quite a while. 1962 is when diffusion of innovations was written, but that's the key element, and I think a lot of people miss that that whole system is a system of risk avoidance, right? That's what that
mhm.
is.
That's the diffusion of
So
innovations.
yeah, yeah. So um, the better you are at understanding how people perceive risk, the more successful you can be
Mhm,
with your product or innovation. And we've just put together a way that we've noticed in the past how risk has been reduced. And when risk is reduced and there is successful lower and lower perception of risk, then that product tends to be exceptionally successful, just really adopted widely. Entire industries go through a transformation
mhm, mhm.
when the mainstream says, "Yeah, this is safe," and that's what people want. That's people want to be safe.
Yeah. and and maybe it's worthwhile to mention that safety comes in different flavors. So safety is not just that you're not going to lose your life, which it is, or you're not going to lose a lot of money, which it also is, but it's also about, can I lose my uh, job?
Yep.
uh, do I have to spend a lot of time learning this? Do I have to change my behavior? That's also risk, right? Okay, because mainstream customers will like to say, and what we have observed is that a lot of them, they are not self-confident on adopting new technologies, right? So
Yep.
everything
Yep.
that makes them change is like, oh, no, 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 it's too much for me. So risk has different flavors.
Yes.
Actually, I'm going to stop here and to start sharing the screen. So for the ones that are listening to us in a podcast, I encourage you to go to our YouTube channel. You also can watch the video, for example, if you're on Spotify, because I'm going to share the screen and show the different flavors that risk that we have identified, right? Mostly you, Warren, during the last 30 years. And we call this model the low risk reinvention. And
Right.
we have identified 18 elements that reduce the risk perception of
Yep.
buying a product.
Yes.
Here it
Yep.
is. And today, related with, sorry, but I have to say this, right? Today, related with the article and the cyber attacks, we are going to introduce the assurance bucket. So we have three buckets: reliability, affinity, and assurance. Today, we're going to talk about the need of helping the end user and the buyer of your technology to feel assured, to rest assured with your product or with your technology.
Yep. And it's really one of the um, areas that I guess I would call it maybe pattern recognition. Um, that if you look at many of the most successful companies and products, they have that assurance category
Mhm,
filled out completely. And you can actually sort of watch their progress over time. And some people actually refer to that area of that we call assurance. They call it an ecosystem. Some people call it a category. Um, but fundamentally, it's proof that a given person or company is not acting alone.
mhm,
That they, it's that old concept that we've talked about in the past called safety in numbers,
mhm,
and everyone likes to be part of the herd. And if all of an industry or a certain group of customers or people, if they're all doing something together, the perception of risk goes way down,
mhm,
and
mhm,
you just essentially elevate that feeling that this is something that is being accomplished by groups of people who are
mhm,
all acting together, and
mhm,
that's the ultimate goal for
mhm.
assurance. Yeah.
So what you're saying, and let me stop you here because I want to go through the elements, and then for the audience, we're going to introduce each element with concrete examples. So you can land this into your strategy, right? But what you are saying, summarizing, is that you cannot provide these elements by your own. So you are a new product and you're launching, imagine Microsoft. right? And this is one of the examples that we can talk about later when we go through the elements. But you are Microsoft, you're launching Azure, but you need an ecosystem of partners that are going to provide to the local companies that want to adopt Azure a series of complementary services, references, peer-to-peer interaction, and all types of assurance. So the final client buys the core technology. So Microsoft, in this case, is providing the core technology, and then there is an entire ecosystem of partnerships, associations, and so on, players that are providing this assurance. So this is something that you cannot provide by your own. You need to join third parties and to build alliances, right, Warren?
Yep.
That's what you're
Correct.
saying.
Exactly. And, in that particular case, there are going to be other vendors that have complementary products that are also obviously
Lots.
partners, and the methods that they interact through have got to be a standard, and you really have to enable uh, all types of other companies and
Mhm,
organizations to
yeah.
adopt that standard. And without the standard, you see, it's risky because, when a standard exists, that there are lots and lots of companies that will essentially adopt and follow and refine that
Hmm.
standard. So it's it it enables the long-term survivability of that
Hmm.
particular activity.
Hmm.
Even if one or two companies go away, they disappear, you still have a whole ecosystem that's
Yeah. So
dedicated. Yeah.
the standard is something that doesn't live within the company. Is there in the category, right?
Yeah.
But now,
Yep.
just let me just stop you here, just to go through the elements, and then we continue talking. So
Yep.
the audience can have an, let's say, a highlight or an overlook of all the elements that are within the assurance bucket. The
Yep.
6 elements within the assurance buckets are standards or certifications, security and privacy, and all of these are elements that I said lower the risk perception, sponsorships or associations, complementary products and services, customer references, and peer-to-peer interaction. And now is the time we're going to go through these 6 elements to help you, the audience, understand what that means and what are examples. And I think, Warren, there is one example that I really like because it's really easy to understand about the standards or certifications, which is the ISBN, and is key
Yep.
is the key explanation of why Amazon was so successful, right, Warren? Can you
Y-
introduce us to this example?
Sure. Sure. Uh, if if you look at, and it doesn't matter where you get a book from, if you look at any published book, you will find on it an ISBN number. And the ISBN is essentially just a way to label a book so that it is unique. But that is a worldwide standard. And once an ISBN number has been assigned to a book, it can never be used again. So it's a system of standard labeling for books anywhere in the world. And what it did, and well, it did uh, really help Amazon. But basically, it means that if you have a number or the title of the book, you know what you're going to get. There's no question. Whether you buy it online through e-commerce, whether you drive to a bookstore, maybe you get it used from your neighbor, it doesn't matter. That is a guaranteed delivery.
Hmm.
That book doesn't change. So, it's been around quite a long time, and
Hmm.
Amazon leveraged that entire ISBN ecosystem. It's all about book publishing, and they offered, as their very first product, books.
Mhm.
and and there's no variability. There's none. It looks and feels and has the same content no matter where it comes from. So
Yeah,
very, very, very low risk.
yeah.
you know,
Usually, it's very difficult to find the standards also in, well, unless they are security standards like SOC in software that you can adhere to provide also a safety net. But also, I always like to talk about, so if you're launching a new software and and it's about files and you read files or you work with, for example, Excel files, CSV or XLX types of formats, they are standards that
yeah,
everyone works with those formats, mostly CSV. You know that every spreadsheet software is going to work with CSV. Now,
yeah,
if you're launching a product and you are not working with CSV, you're completely out of the standard, of the system, of the category. So you are going to have a hard time
yeah,
to getting more clients because it's very risky for someone to adopt something that doesn't adhere to the industry standards, right?
yeah. And and I have a favorite example if we have a minute that
Yeah,
and
and then we have
that's
to move
back
to the next one.
yeah, but that's what, happened really, with the personal computer when it first came out, is there was the concept of the IBM PC clone.
Hmm.
And all right,
Right,
and
I
a
have one of those.
clone, right? Yeah, a clone is it's exactly the same thing from all kinds of different companies, Hewlett Packard and Dell and Gateway and all these vendors. And what they were doing was was selling something 100% identical, and it was an accidental standard. It wasn't put together in a formal way like a lot of other standards were. IBM just said, here it is. This is what it's going to be, and it's widely available parts. Anybody can put it together, and a lot of companies did, and that just made the feeling of safety go really high, because if anybody goes out of business, we don't care. We have exactly the same thing
Hmm.
that is sold by many other companies, and
Exactly.
I'm never going to be left with something that doesn't work.
Yeah, makes sense. And the next element, the second element of these six elements to provide assurance to the market, and at the end of the
Yeah,
day is to drive more sales, reduce the cycles, is security and privacy.
yeah.
What can you tell us about security and privacy? Do you have an example, Warren?
Well, so what I want to do on this one is talk about um, ways that maybe some of our listeners can engage in this element. Right now, for example, the there's a government agency called the FCC, and they've
Mm-hmm.
created a thing called the IoT cybersecurity labeling program.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is it's essentially a and it hasn't actually been fully uh, developed, but what it is it's a an independent structure for saying yes, this device, and in this case, it's an IoT device. This device has certain security characteristics,
Mm-hmm.
and the if anyone is in the IoT space, the FCC has not finalized the definition. That means, and they're asking for vendors and companies and to actually help complete this area of security. All right,
Mm-hmm.
so you can go get involved now, and you can essentially help refine that as a security
Mm-hmm.
element that will then be available to any IoT vendor. If they want to put the label on, and there's certain requirements to meet. But what that is it's a great security um, guarantee, is what I would
Mhm,
call it. If you
mhm,
follow that and you adhere to that. Now, of course, everybody knows there are products for security. There's antivirus software has been around a long time. Um, I, I don't want to get too far off topic here, but one of the things that is a big deal in healthcare is, at least in the United States, is called HIPAA. And
yeah.
it's designed to really maintain the privacy of
Mhm,
patients, so that
mhm,
their medical records cannot be
mhm,
um, you know passed around. So there are places where security and privacy are enabled through government programs, industry programs, sometimes independent products. But that's a key element. Um, you know,
mhm.
uh, and
Fantastic.
it's yeah. So I hope that was
Of
clear.
course, of course. And as I
Yeah.
said, yeah, these elements come in different flavors. And
Yes.
actually, another thing that I like, also to talk or to use as an example is when you work with an enterprise company or rather mid-market company. Uh, if you are if you are going to become a vendor and to provide them services or work with them, they are going to ask you for a security check.
Yeah.
And that means you have to adhere to different standards, security standards that they are asking you to. Now, there are a lot of vendors that they won't pass or they don't want to pass through all those security checks, and
Yeah.
that's fine. That's one business decision, but it impeds you to win more customers. So at the end of the day, each of these elements, each of the 18 elements, if you build them little by little, what you're going to accomplish is to close more customers little by little, because all of them together are going to open more doors, thanks that you are providing a more profound and wide safety network for customers through these 18 elements.
Yeah.
Now, the next element that we have is a sponsorship or association.
Yeah. And it can be incredibly powerful, just massively powerful, um, because an association, or depending on what the industry is, that's like an endorsement. That can be, even I'll go to a consumer item for a second. If if you make a motorcycle, and uh, there's an association of motorcycle enthusiasts, and I don't know the associations very well in motorcycles, but if they
So far,
endorse, okay, yeah, if
who
they
knows?
endorse your product, wow, that's huge. You think about that. They represent, thousands or even millions of people in your category. And if you have done enough to, essentially get their endorsement, and they will act as a sponsor or something, some kind of thing like that. It's just unbelievably huge. And going back to that earlier example, if you look at personal computers, IBM didn't necessarily sell more than everybody else. Really, if you think about it, HP, Gateway, Dell, Livorno, they're the ones that got most of the sales. But guess who the sponsor was for that IBM PC was? Well,
Microsoft.
their name is on it. It's called IBM. It was just it was just the most credible organization in that category, called computing at that time, no one else was even close to having their reputation. And when they put their name or their stamp of approval on the personal computer and created, the IBM PC, things just, I mean, it took off like a rocket. And we're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar industry over the last 40
Yeah,
years. It doesn't get any bigger and better than that.
yeah.
Um, and there are all kinds of other examples that
And
you and I have talked about.
that's actually an
Yeah,
example of the bowling pin strategy that we talk in the first chapter, and how to jump into adjacent segments, because the reputation of IBM was built with mainframes, right? With these
yeah,
big computers,
yep,
centralized mainframes, and because they were so credible, building computers, personal
yep,
computers, is an adjacent segment. So
yes,
you transform that early reputation to conquer a new segment for a new population or a new audience, right? So
yep,
you conquer new markets by leveraging the reputation that you've won in a different market, because
yep,
their markets, they are adjacent, not
yes.
exactly the same, but they are adjacent. Just
And
wanted to mention this.
oh, absolutely. And look at how it made people feel safe. When all of a sudden, because there were personal computers of all kinds for quite a while. And it's like when the biggest, most well-known, with the highest credibility company says
Mm,
we are going to endorse this thing called a personal computer and let others make it. I mean, wow.
yeah. And then we have
So
another example in the software that we've worked together in this client. It was a client, and they have this complex sales software, and they were very, very successful within law firms. Remember
yeah,
that case?
yep,
And why was that?
yeah. Well, and they did really a masterful job. So that they had a system for making CRM systems better, and they focused heavily on the law, legal firms, and what the association was called, I believe, was the Legal Marketing Association.
Exactly, that was the situation.
Yeah. So, um, receiving that endorsement from the Legal Marketing Association, all of their customers in that category all of a sudden felt very, very comfortable. And, that's no small thing, to make a, a whole population of lawyers, because, lawyers aren't always the most trusting people.
Yeah.
Okay.
They had to look at
uh,
every detail.
Right. Yes, exactly. So to get an entire ecosystem of lawyers to point to what you're doing and say, this is the best solution for keeping track of customers and engaging new customers, or for lawyers, they call them clients. But um, you know, it's huge. It's transformational.
Yeah.
It is absolutely that is what launched that company.
Yeah. Actually, when we had a look to their customer base, and then when you have a look to their customer base to segment and to see where can you be more successful, where can you claim market leadership, because that's what you want to put the flywheel into motion, the snowball, to create this snowball effect, to,
Yeah.
to grow more and more within a segment and to become the owner of the segment. It was super clear that they were the absolute owners of the legal firms work, uh, the legal firms market, in this
Yep.
in this product category. Right.
Yes.
Let's move to the fourth element, Warren,
Yep.
because
Yep.
we're still three elements away.
Right. Yeah.
So the next
So
one,
complementary products. And
let's go for it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So um I know I keep coming back, but I think it might actually be helpful to stick with the same example here again. Think
Let
about
me
if you
let me
had
let me say again. The name of this element is complementary products.
complementary
Okay.
products. Yeah.
Okay.
So what is a complementary product? Well, to use our ongoing example, if you have a personal computer, well, guess what you need for it to actually do a better job, work better for you? You need software. All
An
right.
operative system,
You need
for
these are
example.
things that, yeah, and you probably need a printer, and
Yeah.
you need communications capabilities. So all of these things are complementary. All of these things add on to essentially a core offering. And it, someone who wants to avoid risk will say, well, this one product looks good, but I'm going to need three or four other things. Do they exist? Do I have any choices? Right? Because what uh, what are the choices now? Let's just take Slack. What if you don't like Slack? Do you have another choice?
Well, you have to Teams. You go
You
to
have
Microsoft
Teams.
Teams.
Yep, exactly. So, these are these these are kind of add-on products if you think about it,
Mhm.
to a kind of a platform that you're using for your business, which is a computing platform of some kind, and
Yeah.
so it's those kinds of things, and there are how many add-ons now for your laptop or your computer? How many software products are available today?
Mhm. Mhm. That they make your life easy. Now, an example with software. So and I always get back to Microsoft examples because it's so easy to me because I've been, you know, almost my entire life working in the Microsoft ecosystem. But I always love this example, which is if you think about Azure, right? Azure at the end of the day is a PaaS, right? Right? A platform as a service. So if you are a client that doesn't have any developer in their or software development, let's say team in their company, you you cannot use Azure because you need to build user experience on top of the platform that Azure and Microsoft is providing to you. So in that sense, Azure is an incomplete product. And in that sense, whatever Azure is huge, whatever the service, the specific service of Azure you're going to use, is what we call the core product. And for the audience that has been watching our video, if you remember the low-risk recipe or the low-risk reinvention, it was a circle with all the surrounding elements that were the 18 elements that reduce the risk perception. But in the very center, we have the core product. In this case, the core product or the core technology is Azure. Now, when someone wants to implement Azure, you're going to need someone that designs the user interface. So a user experience designer, someone that develops that experience and integrates that experience. So you're going to need custom software development services. You've got two services more, but most importantly, then you're going to need training services on how to use that custom software that they developed for you, and you're going to need adoption services to support the adoption of your end user and the change management required for the end user to use that solution. Now, those are four types of services that Microsoft by default is not offering, or you pay huge amounts of money and you hire Microsoft Consulting, which is a tiny part of Microsoft
Yep.
services in this case. But most of these services are provided by local partners. So everywhere you go in the world, you have a partner that is going to complete the product for Microsoft and is going to provide the user, the UX design, the software development, the training for the end user, and the support and adoption for the end user. Those are complementary services that Microsoft needs in order to sell their solution and to reduce the risk perception of
Yep.
their solution for the buyer and the end user. So what that means is that if you have a solution that is kind of this and is incomplete in the eyes of the final client, you need to look for partnerships and third parties that are helping the end user realize the full value and
Yep.
and build the complete solution, get the complete solution, right? And
Yep.
then you will sell more.
Yep. Absolutely. And um, you know, a lot of customers hate incomplete products. They just, that's one of the worst experiences of their life is to purchase something and discover there's a missing element and nobody can fix that missing element. That
Yeah.
that's that's a form of hell.
And the more in the mainstream, the more in the late majority, the more you can see these behaviors. And I have a
Yep.
very tangible example with my mom. I think 3 years ago, I was with my mom and we went together. She wanted to switch from Samsung to Apple. Big deal with 60 years. Big deal. She has 60 years old. She's 60 years old. Well, now 63. And then I was with her. And then, I said, let's go to Apple because Apple is the one that is selling. We have all the different iPhones, all the elements, and actually it's a little bit cheaper than a big retailer, uh, company that we have in Spain. We're from Spain, and it's called El Corte Inglés. Uh, it's like I am figuring the name of a big retailer that you have in the United States. I've been there, which is the biggest one, Warren.
Well, so
Walmart.
there's Walmart. Yes.
Walmart. So it's kind of
Yeah.
Walmart, right? And then she goes, I don't want to go to Apple. I want to go to this other retailer. And I was, why? If Apple is Apple, you're going to buy an Apple. And then she goes, no, but Apple is not going to migrate my Samsung to my iPhone. And then if there is something wrong, I know that in this other, uh, you know, um, store, which I used to go from my whole life, they are going to do whatever it takes for me in terms of support, training, whatever, so that I can adopt this new technology. So she was feeling more safe going to someone that is actually not the manufacturer because of the complementary services.
Yeah. Yep.
How's that?
It's yep. Big deal. Big deal.
So you go to someone that is not the manufacturer just because they are providing you the complete product, and
Yeah.
it provides you this sense of safety.
It
That
does.
that's how you sell.
Yep. And 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 I know I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit, but the world is becoming less and less safe.
Mhm.
So the more you pay attention to helping customers feel safe, the more successful you can be.
100%.
Yep.
And with this, we'll move to the next element. Warren,
Yep.
two
Yep.
elements more.
Yep.
Which one do
Yep.
you want?
So we can talk about visible or word of mouth references,
Yeah,
and
that one's easy.
these are really extremely powerful because people really want to talk to someone that they relate to and trust,
Yeah,
who has already adopted the technology, and there are a number of different examples where
and look alike.
and
The most look
well
alike, or the
yeah
most close, someone that
yeah
is that has the same job description, that is in my same industry,
yep
or in B2C, someone that is my neighbor and I know my entire life, the
right
better, because that
it,
that triggers.
yep
Uh,
well it's a sense of comfort,
yeah,
because they're not hearing about performance and things from the vendor. They're actually hearing about the results from their neighbor or their colleague or someone that they just trust. And the example that I think is just amazing, if it's okay, is this kind of system was actually set up. It's called the New Buildings Institute, and they
hmm
set up a system of visible referencing for schools that
hmm
wanted to do solar power. So that means if you have a school and you're an administrator, you're working at a school, and you feel that solar power is a good addition to your infrastructure, you can go to their database and they
Oh,
track and display the results of solar power on schools anywhere in the country. So
mhm,
you can say, okay, well, I've got a school that's got 500 students, and I'm in
mhm.
um, Minnesota. Okay, and what they do is they go, fine, let us show you people who have a school with 500 students in
That's
Minnesota,
very powerful.
and here's how their solar power is performing, because they've got the actual performance data right there on the screen.
Mhm. Yeah.
You, you know, you talk about focusing on, visible referencing between people who are exactly alike. It is one of the most masterful programs of risk reduction I have ever seen, ever.
Mhm, mhm. And actually, we can see this in our own services, right? Whenever someone is asking for a reference, we try to send them a video of someone that has exactly the same
Yep,
problem, exactly in the same industry, and exactly with the same job description, and it works like a charm.
it
And
does. Yeah.
in the book Nudge, a book
Oh,
by behavioral science by Richard Thaler and Cass Sustain, they
yes.
call it identity-based cognition, which
Yeah.
means I get identified with this person, and because I get identified with this person or with this group of people that are look alike, they face the same issues, um, I trust them, right?
Yep. Yep.
It's a kind of bias, and and uh, and this element in the low risk recipe that we're talking now triggers that and creates that effect of safety,
Yep.
almost, and it's very powerful to close more sales,
Oh yeah.
which
You
is
you
what
bet.
we all want.
Uh, and what you said is true. There are a lot of prospective customers who won't move forward unless you have good references, you know. And so I think this is not a really unique or unexpected attribute. Everybody's used to having references.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
can you provide the right kind,
Mm.
right?
Unless you're an early adopter, they don't care about references. And the same apply. I remember when we first started predictable innovation, the very first customer we got, actually the biggest ticket ever, which also confirms what we were saying. Early adopters, they have big pockets. They didn't ask for any reference.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're asking for all this money. Actually, still nobody else has paid more than them to us,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and they never ask for a reference, and that's behavior of an early adopter.
It is. Yeah.
They don't need this assurance and safety net because what they really want is the core product, and what they wanted is our
Yep.
frameworks.
Right.
Actually, they were very compelled by the low risk recipe, by implementing the low risk recipe and the market ecosystem and the diffusion
Yep.
of innovations. And because we had this expertise, they were just, let's go because
Yep.
we want
Yeah.
this.
Yep. And
The last,
it just, there aren't very many of those, innovators and early
that's the
adopters.
problem.
You can run out of those very quickly.
Actually, never got someone like them. Uh,
Yeah.
and actually,
Yeah.
I'm asking. Well, we've been asking to them to become a reference for the next customers because the next customers they are most of them they ask, if not all of them, they ask for references
Oh yeah.
because
Yep.
they want to reduce the risk perception of working with us, which is fine.
Sure.
Fortunately, we understand this, and
Yep.
our closing rates are not bad because of this.
Yep. And then the only other thing you can put on that is really, makes a dramatic difference is if your reference is a thought leader, a recognized thought
Ooh.
leader in an industry, then that carries more impact than just, what I would call an ordinary or regular reference.
Mm, I
Thought
think that
leaders do it. thought leaders doing references are a big deal.
Yeah. I think that triggers the authority bias also in terms of
Yes.
behavioral science.
Yep. Okay.
Last one, because we're running out of time,
Yep.
and we're leaving peer-to-peer interaction. What can we
Yep.
tell to our audience about the peer-to-peer interaction element, Warren?
Well,
How does it work? An
yep.
example.
Yep. All right. So there are a lot of times that customers just want to be left alone and figure things out with their peers, and they don't want the vendor around. They don't want the vendor saying, "Well, here are your references. Just go talk to the people we've set up to provide a reference." They just want to talk with others like themselves and discuss what are the tricks, what are the tips, what worked for you. You know, if you ever look at, there are so many, like they're called meetup groups. If you look at
Mm.
meetups, well, there are
We also
meetup
have Reddit.
groups.
We
Yeah,
also have Reddit
yeah,
groups in the
y-
internet,
yeah.
communities, Slack communities. Yeah.
Well, in the old days of the going back to our example again, they used to call them user groups. User groups were very, very vertically focused. So you would have, farmers who are learning to use PCs, or, maybe they're learning to use robots or something, but they get together as a group and they talk about their experience. They share secrets, they just interact among themselves, and that is a critical element of reducing the perception of risk, because it's people working through issues together. And that's
Mm.
got a lot of
Yeah.
power.
Yeah. One of these examples also with the software, with a software company is Notion, the productivity tool.
Yep.
This productivity tool has seen a lot of growth thanks to, and I don't have the data, but it's what I've researched, and it's what I've observed also because I was part of this community because of their community. So they created a community of Notion um, advocates or ambassadors. They were called
Yep.
ambassadors, but not
Yep.
only ambassadors, a community of users.
Yep.
And you would adhere to that community as that group, and then the ambassadors will help you, and you will learn from peers, not from Notion. And then if you ask a question about something that is failing or a bug, you wouldn't get an answer from Notion directly. You would get an
Yep.
answer from someone that is facing the same issues like you. And just because the communication is not coming from Notion, you take it as a more trustable communication. You're
Yep.
learning from peers, right? And
Yes.
that has been great for Notion in order to help people understand more how to use Notion and grow. So basically, this community was providing this peer-to-peer network in which
Yep.
there was unbiased communication between end users.
Yep. And it's very, very powerful, because someone who's not a customer yet can go join that conversation, and they get
I've
to
done that.
hear, yeah, they get to hear from their peers who have already decided to adopt, what things they're facing, what's difficult, um, what emotions come up.
Yeah. And who's here? You can say, let's know who's here. Oh, I know this guy and this girl and this and this and this. Well,
Yeah.
maybe I should join them,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
All
So
right.
very powerful.
Yeah. Warren, we're going to leave here, but before saying goodbye to our audience, we're going to summarize the 6 elements that we've been talking today. So we've been talking about the low risk reinvention, which
Yep.
is the framework in which we have packed the 18 elements that we have discovered that reduce the risk perception of buying a technology based product.
Yep.
We divide these 18 elements into 3 buckets. And
Yep.
today we've been talking about the assurance bucket. Within the assurance bucket, we have 6 elements: standards in the industry, security and privacy, sponsorship or association, peer-to-peer interaction,
Yep.
customer references, and complementary products and services. That's
Yep.
everything we've been talking about today. And next week, well, in 2 weeks actually, because we have a new chapter every 2 weeks,
Yep.
we will talk about the next bucket in
Okay.
the low risk recipe, which is affinity.
Okay.
What is affinity, Warren? And with this, we'll leave
Yeah.
it for next week.
Yeah. So that's essentially just seeing the world as if you were the customer. It's like putting yourself in the customer's shoes. I don't know if that's an American saying or not, but seeing the world from your customer's point of view and understanding what they go through and knowing it so well that what you have pretty much sells itself.
Fantastic. So in 2 weeks, we wait you here in the podcast, in the show, and we will talk about these 6 affinity elements with
Yep.
concrete examples so you can embed them in your strategy to accelerate your traction, close more deals. Here in the Unstoppable Product, the show in which we help CEOs and executives in high tech to gain a go to solution status by leveraging the behavioral science of diffusion of innovations. Thank you so much, Warren. I'll see you
You
in
bet.
2 weeks.
All right.
I've enjoyed a lot, as always. Talk
Always.
soon.
Thank you.
Bye.